Hello, everyone. Good morning from the U.S. and good afternoon where you are, most likely. My name's Ian Hanau. I'm the CEO and founder of Planet Geo, based in Denver, Colorado. And I'm joined here by Terry Reichland. Terry, would you like to go next? Introduce yourself.
Yep. Hi, so good afternoon. My name is Terry Reichland. I live in Cardiff, but I work for a small consultancy called Arboriculturalists, and we focus on community tree planting as well as working with Planet Geo to distribute TreePlotter in the UK. So with me today, I have Tom Popplewell and Jonathan Smith from TEP, the Environment Partnership, and we'll be discussing their experiences with TreePlotter in the context of working for a very big environmental consultancy. So I think that's the intro from my end. Jonathan and Tom, do you want to give us a bit more info about what do you do and how big your team is and so on?
Yeah, I'll kick off. So this is John. Hi, my name's Jonathan. I'm Associate Director for Arboriculture at TEP. It's great to hear the company described as very large environmental consultancy. I guess we are one of the bigger players sort of in the UK, but yeah, we're by no means the largest, and yeah, we have to compete for work with lots of other very active consultants. But we operate nationally working out of 5 offices, with our head office in Warrington, and we employ about 140 staff, 11 of which are full-time arboriculturists, and that's the core focus of our resource that uses TreePlotter. And we primarily do development related work, but working across all sectors, through from nationally significant infrastructure projects through to community-led projects, and yeah, major house builders and service providers. So yeah, we enjoy a very broad spectrum of work, most of which, where we can, we try and turn TreePlotter to that use. Tom, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Tom Popplewell. I'm a principal arboricultural consultant at TEP. I live in Sheffield, and I sort of split my time a bit between offices, but mainly our head office in Warrington. I mainly work on the planning and development side, and also with local authorities, particularly an increasing area of our work is on the kind of policy, strategy and green infrastructure side. So that, I guess, that's quite relevant to the use of kind of powerful inventory software, which is becoming more and more a feature of those kind of strategic level projects. I've been at TEP for about 10 years, and yeah, we are getting to grips after about a year now of using TreePlotter in earnest. So we're looking forward to hopefully getting some interesting questions about it and talking about that today.
Nice, thank you both. So yeah, Ian, do you want to just get started on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take my turn, so to speak, introduce Planet Geo. Again, we're based in the US. We're around 30 staff, and we are a blend of software development, software support, and our consulting services. So one of the things we're very proud of is that we use TreePlotter for our own data collection, reporting, analysis, and even how we deliver certain data sets to clients. So we're really a pretty technology-focused urban forestry company, and we have about 9 certified arborists on our staff. Some of those are in our business sectors, other ones are out using TreePlotter for data collection all the time. So we have a geospatial group. That's my background, is geospatial and forestry. So we do a lot of LiDAR analysis and satellite imagery analysis, looking top down at the urban forest structure, as well as bottom up in terms of typically how we use TreePlotter, that we'll talk about more today. So what I'm going to do just very quickly is talk about the 3 different main products that we are currently offering, and how we've developed this international program. So beginning of 2018, we had our first international software partner in Australia with Homewood Consulting. And then the very end of 2018, we brought on Russell Horsey with Arboriculturalists as our UK partner. And Russell has a great long track record with arboriculture in the UK. And so interestingly, with getting this off the ground, about a little more than a third of our new software sales last year were international, and we now have 8 partners around the world. We're by far and away the most active in the UK and Australia, with about roughly 40 software clients between those two areas. So it's been really exciting to see the international growth, and that's one of the programs that I manage right now. So if you're not very familiar, we actually have 4 products in the suite of tools within TreePlotter. We're mostly going to talk about TreePlotter inventory today. I'll just give a brief introduction to that, to Parks and Canopy. We're not yet selling TreePlotter jobs, which is outside of the US. We're probably about 6 months away from doing that, but it is a monthly subscription software for doing estimates and doing basic inventories, so you can have both the proposal of your recommended work to a client as well as the tree map as well. So all the products are mobile friendly and GIS based, all stored in the cloud. We use Amazon Web Services, so we have 4 different servers in different countries, and one of those is in London. So all the data for all of our UK clients is stored in the UK server in London. We have a handful of clients in Europe as well, Belgium, Romania, and a few others that are in the works. So if you're not very familiar with TreePlotter inventory, it's a really versatile and configurable software application. Think of it as sort of a central code base from which you can build upon for a variety of different applications. So the markets are very broad, all the way from, in the US at least, local governments, state governments. We have about 9 US state agencies that actually have TreePlotter inventory, where they upload data from 100 different cities and bring it all into one system, which is exciting, all the way down to very tiny tree planting, not-for-profits, community foundations, around 30 universities, I believe now, and probably somewhere 75 to 100 private entities in terms of consultants in tree care. About 50 to 60% is government use. But it's so configurable that we have different ways that we'll talk about a little bit today of how we launch and implement the software so that it can be used for private entities, all the way out to folks who want to have an online map of their trees. Let's see, what else? Oh, there's a variety of modules listed at the bottom. So BS5837 is not exactly a module. It's almost really more of a TreePlotter product in and of itself, because the way it's delivered, which you'll see today, is very specific. So, but for cities, councils, other organizations, you can have add-on modules like what we call work order management. You can do offline data collection. We have made a lot of progress in the last 2 years, including BS5837, but also other standards in the UK like CAVIT, as well as QTRA for risk assessment. So we've done quite a bit of work to internationalize outside of traditional standards in the US and Canada. We also work closely with the iTree folks, so we can do calculations of the benefits of trees within TreePlotter, and there's a few other ways to have modules and add-ons and so forth. So about a year and a half ago, we also expanded the core of TreePlotter to work for park assets. So you can map, inspect, assign work, create schedules, and generate lots of different reports on your park assets as well. So this is very configurable. You can set up mowing schedules to watering schedules, or playground inspections and those schedules. So TreePlotter Parks is just really getting off the ground the last year or so. And last one, TreePlotter Canopy is more of a landscape scale visualization and analysis tool. So we have maybe 25 clients roughly, but you can also have TreePlotter inventory with Canopy. And what that means is that with the click of a button, you can look at the entire urban forest in terms of tree cover. So where do we have the highest canopy cover? Where do we have the most potential to expand and plant to increase canopy cover? If we did that, what are the ecosystem services or benefits of that canopy that we can do scenarios? So it's really more of an analysis tool. But you can switch then and say, here are our priority areas to focus on for urban forestry. Now let's go into inventory and let's actually plot those trees and track the work that we're doing. So it's kind of an end-to-end solution from top down and bottom up. And I will hand it off to Terry.
All right, so here we are. Like I said earlier, me and my boss, Russell Horsey, we belong to Great Trevilla. Russell, like Ian mentioned, has extensive experience working as a tree officer in both Bristol and London, and he joined up with Planet Geo because he really believes in TreePlotter as a product, because he obviously has experience with several survey and inventory programs or softwares. So there's that. And Cherry is the head of our customer support here in the UK. So you generally have customer support available to you from 8 a.m. UK time, obviously. And then once Cherry kind of clocks off, the team in the US will be available to you. So I'm sure many of our users in our TreePlotter family find this very useful, because if they go out surveying during the summertime, obviously long hours and stuff, so there's always help available, which is, I think, one of our greatest kind of perks in terms of customer support. So we're kind of there from 8 till sundown or even later, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Ian, do you want to go to the next slide? There we go. So yeah, we have a variety of clientele. Well, we call them TreePlotter family in the UK, and they come from a variety of different kind of parts of the sector. So a lot of our local governments. So we have our newest local authority is a Welsh local authority. We got them about a month ago, and then a lot of our private clients are obviously smaller and larger consultancies, TEP included. And then we have some other different type of estate owners, which excuse me, estate owners. So Onward Homes is a massive social housing authority, which they also deal with, like, very big tree numbers and stuff, with around 40,000 properties to date. So yeah, we have a very varied type of demographic in terms of users, which means that, like, TreePlotter is a very customizable program, and you can kind of build it around your needs as an organization. Next, Ian. There we go. Like I said about building it around what you need, you can basically start with your TreePlotter basic package, which would let you do your inventory, but you can also add on a lot of different modules. For example, you can get your OS base maps integrated through an API. You can have your offline collector, which is one of our more popular add-ons, a lot of other cool things like eco benefits, which would be a module coming out sooner based on iTree. It's going to help you quantify your ecological benefits from a monetary standpoint. There's also your advanced risk assessment forms and many others, but the one I want to talk to you about today is the development survey one, because Jonathan and Tom had a lot to do with that when we first started out. So, well, in the UK, that is. So the development survey module is basically it's like Ian said, it's a whole new app, and it's based on the BS 5837 guidelines for construction and demolition. So, and it's not really used outside of the UK that much, and that's why when TreePlotter first kind of became available in the UK, there was this need to get it, kind of started up. So Ian and Jonathan, do you want to tell me more about how that happened?
Yeah, hopefully you can all hear me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think the journey began from a telephone call from Russell, actually, to inquire whether we would be interested in a demo from TreePlotter, and this was early 2019. And at the time, TEP were exploring opportunities to move away from pen and paper. And, we'd been doing tree surveys, Pt.3 surveys on pen and paper for a long time, even whilst other companies, our competitors, were moving towards digital platforms. But we explored a lot of avenues and were unable to find something that was more versatile than pen and paper, for less cost or more benefit if we were paying a cost for it, and something that really chimed in with our team as tree people, not techie people, and their ability to not fall in love with the system, but being able to use it, and it should always be something that's an asset and not a chore to use. And I guess the beauty of TreePlotter as it's ended up, and the BS537 module, is that it doesn't feel in the hands of our surveyors like a GIS tool that they've got to interpret and use. It is seamless, and it's more like a Google, a tablet-based thing, and so it makes their data entry very easy to do and intuitive, and they don't have to get their heads around all the GIS background, and that really is what we struck upon through the relationship with Planet Geo. And when we'd seen the demo, we could see the potential in TreePlotter. However, it didn't currently perform in the way it needed to in order to record data for the purposes of a BS5837 survey. But it was the attitude of Ian and his team that really chimed in with TEP's vision and innovative attitude. And so together we were able to see that although the software in its final form didn't exist, all of the foundation that TreePlotter, the inventory software, already gave, that was already in place, and all they needed was a bit of our expertise and interpretation and their programming knowledge to sort of bring it to life. And I guess that's how we came to settle on TreePlotter, because we were all moving in the same direction. And it was in effect a world apart from all the other systems that we'd viewed, which were very much more clunky GIS base models, of which this is, but it wasn't as slick user at the user end, and that's what really drew us to it.
Right. I like that word, slick, and it's also amazing how you kind of didn't go with anything, just decided to stay with the most archaic form of pen and paper. But
we were probably like
either that or nothing.
We weren't going to buy into something that didn't really fulfill all of our needs, and that's why we were keen to work with Planet Geo, and they were keen to work with us, and it was just a really good partnership where we were able to write a brief, quite a detailed brief. And then we were able to do a bit of through consultation about what would work, what wouldn't work, until we were able to settle on something that would satisfy both parties.
Oh, that's brilliant! What a story, eh? That's I actually wasn't with.
We're pretty proud to sing about it because the tool we've got is really good. So.
Absolutely,
it's been a really good partnership and a really good experience working together. Do you want to, Tom and Jonathan? Do you want me to I'll stop sharing screen here and. We can pull this up later on, but do you want to just show on screen your application at this point? Stop sharing.
Yeah, so I'll share.
Do you want to pull it up, John, and then we'll just have a quick kind of guided tour of what it looks like, what the kind of key functions are.
So hopefully you can all see.
From our experience too. I mean, this really was a technical feat because this is a fully cloud-based, basically mobile GIS system, and to do the conversions between GIS and CAD, it's not simple in any way. It's not trivial whatsoever. So there are definitely some interesting functionality. As somebody with a strong GIS background, it was very interesting to see the tools that are out there in the back end that we use to do those conversions between CAD and GIS, and then render that CAD data in a GIS environment directly through the clouds seamlessly. So we actually have a service we run 24/7 now that allows us to do those conversions and deliver that directly through TreePlotter. But I think that was one key aspect to me technology-wise. The other one that I find really fascinating is, again, as kind of a self-proclaimed GIS geek, is entering the attributes about the cardinal directions of the canopy dimensions and physically seeing that change on screen, which I'm sure is something you guys will highlight. So that's all I have to say. I'll hand it off.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, so I think for those who are attending today who are ARB consultants, you'll be very familiar with working in CAD. I think most ARB consultants work in CAD, certainly at the kind of size and scale and types of clients that TEP has. Apologies to those who may be from local authorities who may be slightly less familiar with CAD, but in a practical kind of day-to-day working sense, the challenge that Ian has just described was one of the main reasons that we never signed up for anything else, because there was not, and well, to my knowledge, I still don't think there is anything else that can do quite what TreePlotter does. And the clever thing that Ian's team managed to achieve is that as an ARB consultant, most of the information that we receive from our clients is in CAD, architect's drawings, ordnance survey data, topographical surveys, and so on. And most of the work that we need to do to output to clients is in CAD. But really, by far the best tool to manage an inventory and the best tool to work in the cloud is GIS. And so it's that interface that is kind of one of the unique aspects of TreePlotter. So what basically happens is it has a function which we'll show you shortly to basically hoover CAD information in, project it into the right location so you can see it when you're on site, and then at the very end of the process spit back out CAD information as well as Excel spreadsheets or CSV files. So all the raw data is available to the user, but while you're in the system, you're operating in a GIS powered sort of ecosystem, if you like, and the interface is, like Jonathan said before, it's recognizable because it's more akin to a sort of a Google Maps, or it's a very kind of user-friendly kind of soft interface rather than a horrible kind of lots of lines and numbers everywhere type of interface. So I think what we'd like to do just really quickly is just take a look at what a site, a survey looks like. What we're looking at the moment is our landing screen for the BS5837 module. We do also have another slightly different module which is for doing tree risk surveys, but all of these use the underpinnings of the TreePlotter inventory. That's the kind of the ecosystem that they live in. When we pull this up, be that
Can I just say a couple of words on this home page, Tom?
Yeah, sure.
Business, this has a few, to our type of business, this has quite a few benefits even before we actually load any of the surveys up. So first of all, it collates all of our jobs into one convenient storage place and allows us to utilize this information for marketing purposes. So if we know we're bidding for a job in Wales, for example, we would be able to very quickly identify previous jobs and work experience that we've done in that country. And equally, it would help us contribute towards business priorities if we were to able to look in, around the Swindon area and suddenly we're questioning why we aren't winning any work there. Is that because, we don't have any local base? We don't, there's not that much work generating from that area. But we've got our competitors there, so it's high competition. So it can start to, even at this very high level, this is all useful information that without this, we may just have a big pile of, big list of job numbers without any sort of geographical data to back that up or that's readily to hand. So
to have a nice visual, isn't it? Just
it is.
Yeah.
Now this is
within TEP, I mean, we have similar types of information within our sort of internal mapping and networking systems, but because we're a large consultancy with lots of different teams, what we quite like is having an ARB specific tool. We very much kind of regard this as it's ours. it's our safe place where everything is just trees. Yeah. And so it's quite nice for us very quickly within our team to have a quick reference for the jobs which included an arboriculture element rather than having to interrogate enormous databases of TEP-wide work which might include landscape design jobs or heritage jobs or visual impact assessments or all kinds of things which are not tree related. We can configure this for our team to be the most useful in a kind of day-to-day way. So from that landing screen, what Jonathan's done is clicked into a job. So each of those pins on that map, each one is a survey. So we've now entered a survey. When you create a survey in the first place, you set the location, you set the kind of zoom level so that you can see where the site is. And so this is a development survey which was done using the TreePlotter module by one of our consultants. And the basic interface is, as we've said, like a kind of a Google Maps aerial photograph. There are other options. You can flick between different types of satellite imagery. We have it set up for Esri world imagery and also an Ordnance Survey street map light. That can be quite a useful base map to have where you either want to save data or run quickly in the field if you've got, say, poor reception in a remote location because it's less data hungry than an aerial photograph. Or sometimes it's clearer to draw or plot on top of quite a simple, clean background, especially if you're in the middle of a wood or it's quite a shaded area. So it's nice to have multiple maps to flip between. Next thing would be a typical site. I guess we would receive a topographical survey, which on this site we did, and this is where the sort of the clever CAD interface starts. Down at the right hand side at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there's a section called reference layers. What those refer to is basically files that we have stored locally and we've then uploaded to be hosted within the TreePlotter cloud storage. In this case, we've got a topographical survey uploaded, which you can hopefully now see. Maybe John, if you just flip the base map back over to the OS, we might be able to see.
Yeah, it's a bit easy to see, isn't it? Yeah.
So we can see there that the topographical survey shows us, whatever was on the topographical survey. Probably useful to note here that we would typically receive a CAD topo. We would typically clean it up before we upload it into TreePlotter. So a lot of the information we don't need, maybe that's levels or heights of eaves or areas of the site that we're not actually going to visit. We would typically do some cleaning before we had a sort of a seed file for uploading. And that's just to keep down the number of objects and the size of the file, just to help everything to run as quickly as possible. And that's more important when you're in the field, especially on sites that where if signal is an issue. Although I have to say we've not really had that much trouble with signal. That was one of our reservations, was if this is a cloud-based system, are we going to find lots of places it doesn't work? So far that hasn't been a significant issue.
Okay. How does that work with your, what kind of phone contracts do you have, or what network do you run on when you're on site?
Sure. So we have, all of our surveyors have got tablet computers. So that's our kind of key bit of hardware in the field to run TreePlotter. Those are, we use Microsoft Surface Go. We trialed various different bits of kit, iPads. Surface Go was the best fit for us, mainly, or at least partly, for reasons of integrating with other things that we run within the business. I know that there are people that use iPads. Those are all 4G and GPS enabled, so they have SIM cards in them. We have basically a kind of a company-wide data package, and so they all kind of run from the same on the same contract as all of our company mobile phones.
Okay.
Actually, it's also worth pointing out, and this has been useful on a number of occasions, that you can, it's obviously smaller, but you can just run TreePlotter on your phone. Any cloud and any Wi-Fi or 4G enabled device, because it's just a browser interface, you don't need CAD, you don't need GIS, you don't need any specialist sort of software on the device you're using. You just need Chrome, or other browsers are available.
It's actually interesting, Tom, how we've managed, because of the versatility of the software that does run on anything, that's enabled us to basically come up with different combinations of how to get jobs done. So if it had only worked on one thing, well, if that didn't work, we'd have to leave it and return another time. But actually, where we aren't able to get a signal on the tablet, you can on your phone, and therefore you can finish the survey off on your phone. Or we've done it before where we've tethered the tablets to a hotspot on a phone to enable us to do it, and things like that. So the phone as well has also acted as a battery backup. So if the battery dies on the tablet, it doesn't mean you have to revert to paper or go home. You can just carry on with the survey. All of the data is logged in real time. Therefore, there's no, where did I get up to? You can see on the screen exactly where you got up to and just carry on. So yeah, that's been a real.
I think the cloud-based, being cloud-based gives it a kind of a resilience that you don't get with locally hosted software. We've previously, we have some pretty substantial inventory systems for surveying trees internally that we didn't decide to adapt for this function because basically we thought that Planet Geo could make something better than we could. But we still actually have other inventory systems which we use for specific clients in parallel to this. But it's kind of opened our eyes a bit, I think, as to the benefits of a cloud-based system, because both the fact that you're constantly uploading the data that you're capturing to the cloud when you're in the field, you don't have all those issues with, if the battery dies, am I going to lose what I was doing? And like Jonathan said, you've got the resilience of, well, actually, I could use 3 different devices. I could finish this on any machine can do the job. So that's a really, really helpful function.
And then you don't have to go home and download the data from your tablet, put it on a USB stick, put it back into a computer and work with it there, right?
Well, actually, that is probably the other really, really big change for us is because it's cloud-based, because it's uploaded in real time. Not only do you not have to go home to load the data, but if you're on site surveying, your colleague in the office can see what
tabs
you're
on the
doing
surveyors
in real time. So from Jonathan's perspective, as the head of department, he can keep an eye on everybody. But actually, practically delivering projects, that is really useful. So if one of the first projects we trialed this on, perhaps slightly foolishly, was an absolutely gigantic tree survey that required many, many surveyors on the site at once. And we thought, well, let's jump in at the deep end. And having somebody sat in the office watching the trees sort of appearing and then able to speak to surveyors on the ground and say, right, that one you've just plotted, you need to go further north because you're going to reach those other people that are over, you can see it happening in real time. And all the surveyors can see in real time what the other surveyors on the same site are doing. So you don't have to decide who's doing which field, who's going to stop at which road, because you can literally see on your screen what someone else is doing. And the whole thing sort of synchronizes as you go along. And that is such a useful thing, particularly from a project manager's perspective, to be able to not spy on what your staff are doing, but to help them to be more efficient, more effective. I've had so many calls from people on site saying, I think I've got a bit lost. If I go this way, what's going to happen? And you can pull it up on a desktop and say, oh, no, there's a path just round there, and you can jump in on Street View and just help them to navigate a difficult site. Or there's tons of benefits like that we.
You can only imagine the dismay if you're both working on a site with 300 trees and you get back to the office and you've both recorded a T99. You then have to go through the process
and
of
renumbering
everything and working out which one was duplicated. And so this is
I wish I kind of saw that as it was populating. So you guys didn't record your screen, did you? As
so this has allowed us to manage multiple surveyors in different ways. So like Tom said, we can have surveyors working independently on the same site and not duplicating. But equally, we've done linear surveys where we've increased surveyor safety by allowing them to work in pairs, but sort of leapfrog over one each other and the same stretch of trees, but without duplicating. Now that would have been very, very difficult and cumbersome, and that's not an approach we've managed to take before for various reasons. But yeah, this again, that was another sort of
that's
try.
Yeah, that's especially useful for pipeline, high voltage overhead line surveys, that kind of thing, where you have a narrow corridor that you're working in, and if one surveyor catches up with the next surveyor in front of them, because let's say the first person's in a really dense area, then they need to kind of leap forwards and start somewhere else. Well, where do you start, and how does the second person know when they reach where the first person got up to? Well, in TreePlotter, that's really easy, because it's automatically numbering the trees. You don't have to decide, whether to call this T26 or 27, because it just does it for you. And when you reach the tree that they've started with, you can see it and you stop.
That just saves so much time, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, the hassle and the admin of organising particularly really big surveys. I mean, if you were doing tons of really small kind of residential development schemes, that might be less of a benefit. But when you're doing big kind of infrastructure projects, or let's say it's a new motorway, or something at that kind of scale, suddenly that becomes, you potentially can save you days of admin time.
Well, and I think a lot of these aspects we're talking about right now apply to just about any industry as well. Not councils managing their inventory and having crews and contractors out as well. So, are you able to show adding a new survey, or adding at least a few trees or groups or something of that effect, or is this all your real data?
This
is real data, but we can add a tree and we can delete it later. That's probably the easiest sort of thing to do.
I think,
or you could set up a test, a dummy survey, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's.
And I don't want to get you off track if that wasn't your plan, but I think it'd be nice.
It wasn't our plan, but it's absolutely no problem at all. We'll just choose
fine.
A bit of land in Lincoln. Okay. So if we were to, we're currently not in a survey, so the layer that we're working on is surveys, and it's it's very simple. There's sort of one tool, you just select which layer you're actually working on. So if it was this piece of land here, we would set the location, we record it, testing Lincoln. We set the zoom level, which is generally what your screen is already looking at, or you can manually change that if you wanted to put it further out, and then you might update the weather conditions on the day of the survey. So then we've got our survey point, another balloon. We would load that, which then effectively takes us into the survey where we can start to edit the additional layers. Now, on the previous example, we'd actually imported the boundary layer as a reference file because we had it in CAD, and that was very accurate. For most of our surveys, what we do for the purposes of getting out onto site, and this is another good feature of TreePlotter, it allows rapid mobilization. So each one of our surveyors is been issued with their own tablet computer, and they're effectively carrying around in their pocket a map of the world. So they don't have to come to the office and pick up paper plans. They don't have to download large CAD files over their mobile phones or home internet. We can basically say, I can say, we've won a piece of work. I would set it up like I've just done now, and I would plot a boundary for them. I'd say, tomorrow morning you're going to Lincoln. This is the job number, which we'll put as part of the survey name. They would then find that and be able to then effectively go and survey that piece of land. We could add reference layers in, but as you can see, the aerials allow them to do a survey, and where there isn't hundreds of trees, the post-survey editing to match these up to a topo if we ultimately receive one is not so laborious as to make it necessary to have the topo in and snap to every time. So all I've done now is set up my boundary. Now I'm just switching my layer. So this is the GIS element behind the scenes. And then I'm going to the add function again, same as I did with the boundary. And then I'm choosing whether by map or GPS. Typically, it's by map because the level of GPS accuracy isn't so great as to make it worthwhile on most of these. Oh, did that.
Okay, I'll just add there, Jonathan, the reference files that we looked at before, the topographical survey, for example, there is a feature to, when you're plotting by map, you can turn on the reference layer and then snap to the to features on the topographical survey, or indeed any other reference layer. So if you have a topographical survey that shows tree stem locations, you can plot your trees so that they kind of stick to those stems, so that you know that they are accurate. I think hopefully you can see already that one of the advantages in terms of, well, hopefully an advantage for the trees, is this really rapid mobilization. So for example, being able to tell a surveyor where they're going, while they're out on site, you just tell them where the next site is, and then being able to get out to site and complete really most surveys without even having the topographical survey. All of this means that we bring the arboricultural input into a development project earlier in the process, because we're not waiting. Let's say we've been commissioned at the same time as the rest of the project team. Well, that might include the topographical surveyor. So now we're not waiting for 4 weeks while the topographical surveyor gets out and completes their work. We're actually starting our work on day one at the same time, and we're able to give the client a pretty good idea of what there is and where it is. We might come back when we receive the topo and make minor adjustments in locations later, but we can get hold of really good, reliable information in a kind of presentable format, and we might come on later to how we present this information to clients. But we can do that earlier in the process, which that from a business perspective, that keeps clients happy because we're we're sort of responding more quickly. But actually from a trees perspective, it's good news as well, because on an average development site, if the trees are considered earlier in the process, they stand a better chance of being factored into the design, and that's a win. I mean, I think for most of us, that's a big part of why we do what we do. It's not just to be successful in business, but we also want to come up with good schemes, good designs that that incorporate as much tree retention or new tree planting as is possible. So I think this probably helps on both fronts. And yeah, like you say, Terry, it saves a load of time as well. Because you can if you've got that information early and you can factor it in, you're not having to go back later and make lots of iterative changes.
Absolutely. Can you just quickly show us how to plot like a tree and what it does with the canopy cover? And I did forget to mention that if anybody has any questions, just ask in the chat box or in the question box. There we go.
So what John's done is he's dropped a pin, basically, like you would on on Google Maps or something, onto the tree. In this case, using the aerial photograph, it's pretty clear which blob of green is which blob of green. And then what that does is it pulls up this form to fill in, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go down it quickly now and just have a look at the different fields that records. So at the moment we've got the species, so that pulls up, you can select either by common name or Latin name, and then that automatically pulls up the other one. That is an editable list as well, so if there are things that you want to add to that, there's a function to add new things. So whether you want to include buddleia or smaller things or not, you can configure that yourself. Every field with dimensions, you can tick to say if it's been estimated, or you can not tick that if you want to leave it as this is accurate, we've measured this properly. So the number of stems and the stem calculator, this was a totally new thing for TreePlotter, because this is very kind of BS 5837 focused. So this is where we get towards root protection areas. So effectively, for those of you who are familiar with 5837, this is just a calculator which has the BS 5837 methodology embedded within it. And so that includes really three sort of key aspects. One is the basic calculation of RPA based on the stem and the stem size. The second is that if you change the number of stems, it automatically changes the calculation for one stem, 2, 3, 4 or 5 stems, or more than 5 stems, which is the methodology that the standard sets out. So it kind of deals with that automatically for you. And then an extra really nice addition is that you'll see later on you can set whether a tree is middle-aged, mature, young, and so on. If you set that the tree is a veteran tree, then it will automatically apply the Natural England Standing Advice calculation for veteran tree buffers and override or add on top of the RPA calculation. So even little kind of internal sense checks that we would all do anyway to go back for any veteran trees and check that we'd increased the standoff or check whether the standoff was appropriate. This helps you to it prompts you to do that in a way that I think if we'd been working purely with a GIS company, I don't think we would have achieved things like that within this, but working with a GIS company of tree people meant that they kind of got that kind of content and we were able to build those sorts of features in. So I think that it's those little bits that we really enjoy when we're using it.
Yeah.
So John's put in branch spreads, north, south, east and west here. So what that does is it starts to actually project. I don't know if you can just move the details panel.
Don't think until I finish it.
Until you come out, it won't. Yeah. So
that's my favorite part.
that will generate in the same way that, I mean, there are other, we used to use, I don't know if anyone on the session is familiar with ArborCAD. We used to use ArborCAD when that was a supported bit of software. This does a very similar kind of thing. You can put in which is which, cardinals and ordinals, north, south, east and west you have to fill in. You can also add northeast, northwest and so on if you want to. Significant first branch, height, direction, canopy, height. So all basic stuff that I guess we're all kind of familiar with. Quality categories. So really this is set by the methodology that is in the standard, which is fairly prescriptive. The challenge was to turn that into something that would work.
I've underestimated the canopy.
Yeah.
You didn't see the tree, so that's
15 years at the cutting edge of arboriculture and it's still
not even an oak tree.
So yeah, this is what a tree will then look like, something like. So yeah, you can see that it's given an approximation based on the north, south, east and west. That will obviously change if you adjust those dimensions. The orange circle is the root protection area. That's based on the information we've put in about stem diameter and number of stems. And then all of that information, the location of the tree as well as the geometry of it, that will all be exported at the end back into CAD to be incorporated in our plans and our advice to the client and compared to detailed planning layouts and so on.
So you can also export your survey schedule, right? If you've got a bunch of trees and your basically spreadsheet with all your trees in there. Do you guys export shape files as well for GIS?
Typically we don't, but that's
not your workflow.
That's because if we do pretty much everything in TreePlotter up to the point of, or 95% of the way through to what we would describe as a tree constraints plan.
Okay.
And so we would spell check all of our data, sense checks of all that kind of stuff. We would check that groups were the right shape, that root protection areas look sensible, do all that kind of QA, tidy everything up within TreePlotter. We would then export it to CAD and a CSV file to Excel, and put the date, our name, the author, all that sort of stuff, our standard block templates on that. Yeah. And that would go to the client. Everything beyond that So designing tree protection measures, arboricultural method statements, tree removal plans, things like that, we would tend to then do in CAD based on that exported data. And everything from that point onwards, typically, unless it's for a really, really large survey, maybe for a local authority or a big national grid site or something like that, where we might use GIS, typically everything from there onwards is done within CAD. So mostly for development stuff, we export to CAD. Although you can, there's a similar interface for GIS if that's the platform that you're more familiar with, but that's just not what we normally would use. And I think that's probably the same for certainly most private sector kind of development heavy consultancies are quite sort of CAD reliant.
Yeah. So in terms of, I don't know if you've had any like new staff join you, but since you started using it, and I'm assuming that you guys do like graduate programs and stuff like that, I guess, like, was there any time saving in terms of, learning how to use GIS programs or CAD or whatever that was kind of saved by TreePlotter?
I wouldn't say time savings. I think what we have done is when anyone's ever joined, we've always asked them, is there anything looking at our systems with fresh face, new ideas not institutionalized by TEP, what would you change? And, that's where everyone historically has come in and said, well, we worked with a different system, we didn't use paper, and so they've tried to enact those sort of changes. And I guess since we've got TreePlotter, no one said, oh, we used to use this and that was better. They've basically said, okay, it's easy to use, and we haven't had any, it definitely facilitates induction and getting up to speed and trying to get across the same consistency and quality that we, as a company pride ourselves on. And that's what it's all about, is making sure that we do a good job, and we do a good job every time. And this certainly gives us as managers more confidence that, particularly at least the survey element, is being done in a way that is, as far as it can be, foolproof. Yes, they've got to apply their expertise.
Yeah, I think our team of surveyors and consultants just absolutely love using TreePlotter. It's easy, it's easy and it's fun to use. And I think one of the kind of cool things for us being in a big company with lots of other teams is now all of our, we've got a huge team of ecologists, we've got a team of, landscape managers and landscape architects. And, we have these fun conversations every once in a while now where someone comes up and goes, your TreePlotter thing's pretty cool, isn't it? Does it do, insert, what, does it do bat potential? Oh, does it
Are they all jealous then?
Yeah, and they're all super jealous
it.
of it because we've got the shiniest thing, which is nice. We've already got ideas that, we've started talking about for, I wonder if we could add this field, I wonder if we could, that's something for the future, or we could incorporate this. And that's one of the nice things, having gone through the process of, being kind of part of building the BS5837 module, kind of from well, not from the ground up, but from the initial platform to where it is now. We have a better understanding maybe of what is possible and what Planet Geo is able to do in terms of configuration, in terms of kind of things we've got an eye on for the future.
Yeah, and a good part about, keep going. Sorry, I kind of jumped in a bit early, but I wanted to
cool.
say
I was just going to say that, but I think in terms of time savings, when people first join us, not so much there, but there are definitely time savings later on actually in project work. There are some significant time savings on kind of data handling and the correction of errors. But the thing that we found, which I think this is part of, which draws those two ideas together, the idea of it being fun to use and the time saving, is we found that TreePlotter means we spend more time on site looking at trees and less time in the office processing data.
Absolutely, and that's probably one of the most like enjoyable type. It's great being out on site. Like I've done it myself. I've definitely spent hours on site, but even more hours messing around with data in spreadsheets and stuff. I think our time is coming to a close. If there's any more questions, I know Ian's going to leave this meeting a little bit early, but I'll try and stay on as long as I can. But for those of you who have to, dash at 4, take down note of our, obviously of the TreePlotter website and of our support as well. And I'll be emailing everyone with additional information and the recording once it's out. But yeah, so for now, I just really wanted to thank you, Jonathan and Tom, for taking the time and explaining to us how this works and how you feel about it.
We didn't get any. We didn't get any questions in chat.
Surprisingly,
I know all the other sessions have been very
peppered with
participatory.
questions. Yeah.
Does anyone out there? We don't need to end at the top of the hour. If you need a few more minutes to ask questions of Tom and Jonathan, we'd love to hear your thoughts or questions. So there's like I said, there's a Q&A and also a chat. So. And Terry, did you have a burning question maybe for Tom and Jonathan while others think of any questions they'd like to submit?
You know what? I actually had a question and it was just on the tip of my tongue and it then just forgot, which is the worst. But I'll come back. I'll come back to it.
I'll ask an easy one real quick. So
yes.
How many total users do you have right now at TEP that are that use TreePlotter?
11. I think about 12 if Alistair's got a login, Tom.
Yeah, he does. Well, so in our arboriculture team, like Jonathan said, there's actually more arbs in the company, but that kind of do other things day to day. So it's about a dozen. We have already created logins for the odd ecologist to kind of log in and add something or check something on site. But here's the other really cool thing that we've started doing. Because the sort of pricing approach is not per user, but it's just, well, there's different pricing approaches, I know, and I'll not get too much into that, but we can create read-only logins and then give them on a temporary basis to our clients. So one thing that we've started doing now is when we've completed a survey, we will create a read-only access just to that survey, not to all of our surveys, so that a client can then log in using details that we would send them, log in just to their site and see the information that we have added for their survey. And then particularly at the moment during, the kind of this brave new world of screen sharing and video chats and all the rest of it, we can speak to clients looking at the same interface where they can access our survey data. They can, we can say, hey, look at tree such and such. I want to have a chat about tree 12. They can click on tree 12 and using our interface, we can guide them to the photos of that tree, the link to Google Street View that shows that tree. It's all in one place and we don't have to spend ages writing emails and then sending them to clients with screenshots and attached files and all sorts. We can just say, hey, here's a login. It's only read only. They can't get in and mess it up. And they're not going to see other sites. We can control exactly who has access to what, but that's a new type of function, new type of flexibility that is a really nice addition. It saves us a bit of time, but it's an extra function that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
And I think that, just to add to that, so I think that's probably going to come into the fore with the risk module that Ian mentioned right at the start of this chat, that at the moment, some of our BS5837 data undergoes a bit of editing, so it might not be in its final form, although it should be near enough there. But certainly with the risk stuff where we don't necessarily display canopy spreads, it's more just a location plan to direct them to the data and the risk rating and recommendations for a particular tree. That is really, it's almost in its finished form, if not finished. And that is, rather than printing it out and putting it on a shelf for them, they can just retain it in a digital format and look at it whenever they need to, when they need to do their work. So we can foresee that becoming, more popular, as it were, even than the BS5837 sharing.
Oh, for sure. Sure. So I got a lot of questions in the last 2 minutes. Let me just see if we can answer some of those.
There's one we can probably pick off quickly-ish, which is, can the survey data be exported in Excel or CSV format? I think we kind of touched on that before, but I wonder if we've got like a minute. John, do you want to like do a screen share and just show what that looks like and how that works? I mean, the simple answer is yes. You just click a button, it exports it. But we can show that if that would be helpful. When you export the survey data, it's basically set.
Ian, can
it's set up. It's set up basically to export all of the raw data. So everything that you've recorded in the field, organized by feature reference as you would expect.
Can you see that Excel spreadsheet?
Yep. Yeah, we've got that.
Okay.
So what it does when you export the data is it produces a CSV file, which for those that are not familiar is basically an Excel spreadsheet without any sort of formatting or anything on it. What we're looking at now, this is actually our sort of TEP survey data file. And what Jonathan, I think, is hopefully navigating to is the CSV exports.
Yeah. I don't
So
know what
it will
you...
export. Yeah, we can see this. Yeah. So what is exported will be a file with all the data for the trees, and if you recorded any groups, a separate file for the groups, separate one for the hedges, separate one for the woodlands. And then what we've built internally is an Excel spreadsheet with a macro that just kind of pulls all those into one place and presents them with our kind of header and footer. Just the same as I guess any organization would do a similar kind of thing. But the raw data is all exported in a CSV file, and then you could pull that into another GIS application, or you could just rearrange that manually, however you want to do it. But this is kind of our internal spreadsheet.
So once we've imported it in the background from the CSV, we've then got this is our presentation page for our tree survey data tables, and then it's simply a click of a button for it to draw each one of those things into this form. And this is the real time saving for us to be able to build a macro that reads the CSV file, and we've been lucky enough to have the expertise in-house to do that. But it means we create our data sheets in a matter of seconds, and it makes it very consistent and easy for our surveyors who might not all individually have such great Excel skills.
That looks really good. Thanks so much for pointing that out. That is a very nice and clean.
It's pretty swift, isn't it?
Yeah, it's slick. I like it.
We were very impressed when Robin unveiled it. And then you remember that Tom said you could select individually for each measurement which were estimated and which weren't. Well, we've developed our own in-house formatting for that. So when we click that, I don't know if there are any on here, but any that are estimated become italicized.
Yeah, there's some in the middle, the number of stems. There was one that
we also set the date, the footer date automatically. And it also it grays these cells out where, just to make it clear that we haven't missed any data, but actually that for groups there isn't a canopy spread, cardinal point canopy spread measurement. So it just formats that to show that we've not missed it.
All right. Ian's leaving just about now, so just wanted to thank Ian for taking the time with us. But other than that, I'm still here available for questions, and I guess Jonathan and Tom, if you guys have time, we can chat a bit more and answer any questions that might come in for another 10 minutes or so. But yeah, thanks again, Ian, and it was a lot of fun today, I think. Definitely saw TreePlotter from a different perspective, as opposed to like having it, because I've done 3 of these sessions, so this is the last session focusing on larger consultancies, and the previous 2 were very different but also very fun, and I keep on learning new things every day, so that's really good. So I'm just going to see okay, somebody has raised a hand. Right. I'm just gonna allow you to speak on there if that's all right. Hi, how's it going? I think I have to unmute. Let me see. There we go. Right. Okay, never mind. So somebody tried to leave the webinar. That's all right. So we got a couple more questions. Yes, I'll send the link to the other webinars. Absolutely. And
there's a question here, Terry,
yeah.
about importing already existing data. I don't know whether you can answer that.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm just like super lost with everything. Yeah. So we do this for our larger clients or bigger clients in terms of that manage estates. So we could import data from other softwares. Definitely. So basically all you need to do would be, first of all, I guess, provide me with a sample of your data, and then we can kind of price it, because it depends on like the amount of work that would go into it. Depends very much on what your data looks like. So if it's nice and slick, like what what you guys showed me before, or if it's just like a complete mess, so that will totally vary on the price. But yes, we can absolutely import inventory data.
This is something, can I just add, we've looked at this and we've talked quite a bit about this both internally and with Ian previously. So at the moment, if for large data sets that we have, there isn't currently, there's not a kind of an automated function that's built in that you can kind of manually do that, or not manually, but that you can control as a user. That currently doesn't exist, although I think I'm remembering right, Jonathan, maybe you could say that Ian said that they were sort of looking into whether that was going to be technically feasible for the future to develop something that might help with that. But at the moment, it's a kind of
I think so.
a one-off.
That's the big question that
service.
I think everyone asks at some point.
Yeah.
And so they're looking into.
I mean, we've got a number of, pretty big and quite sort of long-running inventory sort of data sets that we manage for various kind of public and third and private sector clients. And so this is why we've been kind of thinking about this. And for a couple of those, we've sort of decided that the sensible thing to do for us, and this is this is kind of thinking more maybe on a inventory risk front rather than a development front, is actually to kind of almost archive the data that we have, and just sort of draw a line on a particular date and then have a fixed date where we transition, and everything beyond that date is just done using the TreePlotter platform rather than trying to kind of fudge the two things together, if you like. So I think there's probably a range of different ways of approaching that same question, but it will very much depend on the nature of the data that you have, what format it's in, how complete it is. Or GIS can be a bit of an unforgiving place. If you've got data that's been typed in badly, it sometimes it doesn't like it.
Yeah, fair enough. It all depends, but I think like a lot of the times, like the team would find workarounds for any issues that you might have, like whether it's uploading data or keeping another of your inventories kind of up to date. With
one option that we've been thinking about and looking at is whether to take from an existing data set, take the geometry, so take the locations, the points for trees, and the reference numbers. They're pretty easy to clean up and pull across, and then sort of create new data for each of those features as you go along, until eventually you have a repopulated data set. So that there are options for kind of taking part of a data set, which is cheaper than having to wrestle an enormous and potentially kind of patchy data set into a new format. But I mean, we found that whenever we've spoken to all of the team over in Colorado, that they're really they understand what this kind of work is, because they do it themselves, and so they're very familiar with, like I think we said before, we're not dealing with a tech company providing a tech product. We're dealing with a bunch of tree people who also have tech skills. And so that's really, really useful for these kinds of conversations. As soon as it gets a bit bespoke, that's where I think the wheels would come off if you were just dealing with a computer person.
Yeah, and I think although like yes, there's also like maybe a cultural difference, right? Because the US, like we mentioned previously, like developing the BS537 is probably just there's slightly a bit difference in the culture and stuff.
Mm.
But they still manage to do it. So there's definitely ways to kind of like come forward to clients and what they require to make it work best. But it's very unique that we have tree people actually developing a tree product for
Definitely, yeah.
for tree people, which is something I haven't seen or found anywhere else really.
And dealing with Americans, obviously the cultural difference we've had to get used to is just that they're all quite positive and optimistic about everything pretty much all the time, which, can be quite sort of wearing. No, it's been great.
Oh, well. All right, let me see if there's any more questions in here. So we have, so pricing, Jill asked about pricing in one of the very first questions. That really depends on the type of the product that you get. So you can, choose anything from just like the basic package. It also depends on like the amount of users, because we also do a small consultancy package, which Ian mentioned later on. But yeah, the pricing very much depends on what you want to do with your TreePlotter app and how many of you will be using it. So if you'd like, I'll email you with, we can set up a more specific session to kind of get that sorted out. And then, let's see, Catherine asked about the exporting, so that's been answered. And I think Ian's been working on behind the scenes answering questions in the chat. So yeah, that's all really good. Have we worked with Blue Sky tree maps? Not that I know of at the moment. So I'll need to ask and get back to you with that, Jill.
We can probably chip in a bit on that. So Blue Sky Tree Map is not embedded as a mapping product within TreePlotter. It would be, as you can appreciate, I'm sure, extremely expensive to do that. In exactly the same way that embedding something like Ordnance Survey Master Map would be really expensive. But if you're using this product commercially like we are, it's pretty common for us to have, just as we would have a topographical survey, to have Blue Sky National Tree Map or Ordnance Survey data in CAD or in a shapefile that either we purchased for a project or that a client has provided, and those can be uploaded as a reference file in exactly the same way that when we looked at the topographical survey earlier. So there's nothing to stop you doing that, and in fact we do that on projects. Typically on, say, like smaller projects where maybe they're not getting a topographical survey, or projects like I don't know. So we're working with Cadent, and they're putting in a new gas main, and it's a really kind of short project. They just need to replace some valve or something, and the tree officer says, well, we want a tree survey, and they're never going to get a topo done because it's too quick and too small. Or we might just purchase a tiny a little tile of tree map just to help us to just increase the level of accuracy or just add in some extra data. So that's something that can be uploaded, but it's not embedded already, because to do so would push up the cost of TreePlotter, and it would be quite complicated, I think, from a licensing perspective.
Of course.
So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, that answered it for me as well. I actually haven't come across that before, so thank you so much for for answering that. So I think that's more or less it, unless you have any other questions coming in. No, last chance, anyone? All right, we'll be good. So great. Yeah, so I think that was really productive and a really good session. How about you guys?
Yeah,
for us,
yeah. Please.
Yeah. Good. I'm really, really glad that I got to know you in this kind of extent as well. Just because, like I did mention before, I wasn't really with working with Russell when you guys joined the TreePlotter family. So it was really kind of nice to get to know you on a personal and more like, ARB family level type of thing. So thank you both so much
You're welcome.
for taking the time and and answering everyone's questions and showing me what your workflow looks like. And I'm sure we'll have another chat sometime soon. Just for everyone who's still attending the call, I will be sending out the recording of this and the previous 2 webinars if you're interested, once this one has been edited for sound and such. So definitely stay, I'll keep you in the loop basically, but it might not be this afternoon, might be sometime later this week or early next week. And yeah, that's it. If anyone's got any questions at all later on, you can always go to the website or email me. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from everyone. And I look forward to talking to Jonathan and Tom again in the future.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right then. Cool. So I'm going to end the recording now and yeah, chat later. Have a beautiful afternoon and take care.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye.